And Krystal, I mean, I did this, A, because I hope it influences the discussion on whatever's going on with Elon, but I think it's important to like rethink some of these questions around the internet. This stuff, it's free, but it's not really free. And I think we've all found that out really a hard way in what, the 2016 onward?
Yeah. I mean, it's very tangled for me because to me, the one thing that's really clear is my overall view is that these things should be regulated like public utilities. There should be democratic accountability. We all should own it. We shouldn't be subject to the whims of a billionaire. And I don't really think that there's a way to solve this problem by reconfiguring the revenues without having that sort of democratic accountability. But the fact that it's a public company makes it even more difficult because then, okay, let's say that you do diversify. Let's say you do the model you're suggesting, some sort of subscription fee for users, especially large users. You're still going to have ads. And you're still going to have a shareholder imperative to maximize the amount of ad
right now
dollars.
it is private, too. He might take it public.
Yeah.
He took it private, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so that to me is like first step because you can't have the shareholder imperative to, you know, demand that, okay, we have to have the advertisers and no matter what, we have to have the return. I just think that if you have profit at the center of this thing, it ultimately doesn't work. I can also see some problems with, you know, the analogy isn't exactly right to our business because while we derive benefits from being on Twitter, we also are creators on Twitter. So it's not a one-way street.
True.
So if you're making your creators pay to be on I mean, most of these platforms pay the creators to be on the platforms.
Right.
So if you're then forcing the creators to pay to be there, you will have some percentage that's just like, no, not going to do it.
They could.
And then Twitter, I mean, you are definitionally going to have some percentage that's like, no, not doing that. And then Twitter, you know, over time erodes into a less robust, less interesting product ultimately. So I'm not sure it's the remedy that ultimately, you know, will save the business, even though I agree with you that, you know, the fundamental problem with social media is the fact that the user is not the, you know, you're not the customer. That's not who these platforms are catering to ultimately. It's part of what makes it a bad experience, the fact that you're being packaged and sold to advertisers. Like, that's what makes this all really ugly and makes the landscape sort of gross and makes you feel like, okay, I'm not really enjoying my experience here. Well, you're not really meant to enjoy the experience. That's not the point. So having some sort of subscription-based revenue, it can help to deal with that problem, but I think it's a little bit trickier because I can also see how, you know, how it could get into kind of a death spiral where fewer people then are on the platform creating interesting content. That leads to fewer users engaging and down and down and down you go.
The reason why I think it's a bit different is that Instagram ads actually do work. You know, it's like whenever you're the creator and you get paid to be there, it's presumably because your ads work. I mean, Google ads are tremendously effective, like YouTube ads that we create. Twitter ads, we have learned, are terrible. They don't really actually just don't work. They're not, you know, they even did internal studies on their promotional campaigns. They don't do anything. Like, as we've also found out, half of advertising budgets are just spent because they can be. It's like Coca-Cola is like, we got $2 billion to spend, and their ad guys go out and just, you know, dish it out. And then they're like, yeah, it worked. See, we sold X amount of product. Nobody knows what ads are actually effective. I had to put money on it. I think Facebook and Google are the best at it, but outside of that, it's all fake. Like cable news advertising. Why does anybody advertise there? I mean, maybe it works. There's no actual lot of data.
I mean, they are getting like, yeah, it might not be that effective ultimately, but they are getting a lot of revenue from ad dollars. Right? It would be a lot to make up. And, you know, even though I think the current social media model of being ad-based really sucks, we also haven't seen an example where you have the type of model that you're talking about and it works. So, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, like, the consumers at the beginning of this age sort of chose that, all right, we'd rather have it be free and just be like subject to your terrible corporate surveillance and ad spamming and all of that, than have to pay. And also the more that you gatekeep and have paywalls, the fewer people you're gonna have on the platform and the less useful it is, because ultimately the big value of social media is these massive network effects, which is why they're kind of natural monopolies, really. So why the idea of like, oh, let's break them up, that also doesn't make any sense, especially for an entity like Twitter. It's why, really, I mean, in my view, I just come back to you can't have profit as the end-all be-all in these companies. They need to be regulated like public utilities because they're natural monopolies and because the benefit of them comes from it being a free and open digital town square. And it doesn't really work out to have it be that, like, you know, you pay to have a larger voice, basically.
Yeah. It's a tough one, no matter.
It's a tangly one. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.